Have you ever wondered why a man can adore a woman and still destroy her? How his lips whisper devotion while his silence erases her piece by piece? The truth is buried beneath his polished words, a shadow trembling behind the mirror of his love. He calls it care. He calls it need. But beneath every tender vow hides a hunger to possess what he does not understand. His unconscious does not seek love. It seeks control over the reflection that exposes him. He falls in love not with the woman, but with the part of himself he cannot face. The anima, his buried soul, the feminine he exiled long ago, awakens in her eyes. She mirrors his light, yes, but she also reveals his rot. His longing turns to resentment the moment her truth begins to undo him. She becomes too much, too honest, too free. The same fire that drew him begins to scorch his illusions. So he calls her cruel, cold, detached, all the things his shadow has always been. Most men cannot bear the weight of a woman who sees. They crave reflection, not revelation. Their love is an altar built upon projection. They demand softness, obedience, a gentle echo that reassures their fragile divinity. But when the echo refuses to repeat their lies, when she speaks in silence instead of apology, their ego begins to crack. You will know this moment when his adoration turns to accusation. He says you've changed. You've grown distant. He feels small beside your stillness, and so he punishes you for not kneeling anymore. She once begged. Of course she did. Every woman born into the illusion of needing love has begged. She begged for his attention, his presence, his warmth, mistaking crumbs for devotion. She wept in the night, thinking pain was proof of love's depth. But then came the quiet realization. She had mistaken self-erasure for connection. The moment she saw it, something ancient inside her shifted. The begging stopped. The silence began. Silence, her new language. The blade that does not cut but dissolves. It is the sacred weapon of the dark feminine, the witch, the shadow queen who understands that absence wounds deeper than wrath. She speaks no defense because none is needed. Her energy withdraws like a tide receding from the shore, leaving him stranded in his own reflection. He reaches for her, but the mirror no longer answers. He feels her absence as a haunting. His mind begins to chase ghosts. He replays her words, her glances, the way her gaze once saw through him like glass. He does not miss her. He misses the illusion of power she gave him. He misses the validation of being seen by the very light he tried to extinguish. He does not understand that love is not possession. It is a mirror that demands courage. And courage is the one virtue he never mastered. You, the one who once waited for messages, who once measured your worth by his attention, must understand this. His silence after your withdrawal is not proof of your insignificance. It is the echo of his collapse. The ego cannot mourn what it never loved. It can only crave what it lost control over. You were never his lover. You were his mirror. You showed him the divine feminine within himself, and he hated you for it. Tonight, remember this. Every man carries his anima as both dream and threat. He seeks her through women but cannot stand when she looks back. His love turns to war when she refuses to remain a fantasy. He will accuse you of being heartless, manipulative, cruel, but those are the faces of his shadow speaking through him. Do not answer. Do not defend. Your silence is his judgment. The moment she withdrew, she ceased to be a woman in his mind. She became an archetype, the one who cannot be owned. In myths, they call her Lilith, Persephone, Medea. The woman who descends not to escape love but to reclaim herself from its distortion. He thought he was losing her, but in truth, she was returning to herself. And now he stands before the void she left, trembling. His conscious love whispers, "Come back," but his shadow screams, "How dare you?" This is the point of disintegration, where the man's mask fractures under the weight of his own projection. The very thing he sought to dominate now dominates him through absence. The dark feminine does not raise her voice. She lets silence do what truth always does, destroy illusion. If you are listening, understand this command. Tonight, do not explain, do not chase, do not perform tenderness for the unworthy. Sit in the quiet. Let the absence speak for you. Let someone feel the cold gravity of your silence, the way a body feels the air before a storm. There is no revenge greater than your indifference. Power does not plead. Power does not argue. Power withdraws and leaves the unworthy to face themselves. He dreams of her, though he would never confess it. The shadow does not sleep when the conscious mind turns away. It feeds on what the ego denies. He wakes in the dark, remembering her voice like an echo from the underworld. Soft once but now unreachable. Her absence has texture, shape, gravity. It pulls him inward toward the places he's never dared to look. He thought her silence was punishment. It is not. It is revelation. The dark feminine does not retaliate. She reveals. She exposes the hollowness beneath his dominance, the trembling beneath his pride. The woman who once adored him has vanished, leaving behind only the truth he tried to bury, and that truth burns. In every man, the anima is buried alive. She is chained by the intellect, mocked by logic, silenced by control. Yet she waits, patient as a serpent in the dark. Through the body of a woman she rises. She enters through beauty, through desire, through the soft tremor of longing. He believes he has found love. What he has found is his own soul clawing to return. But the ego does not surrender easily. It clings, manipulates, idealizes. It builds illusions of eternal devotion while fearing intimacy's nakedness. The more he loves, the more his fear grows. He begins to resent her sensitivity, her unpredictability, her power to wound him with a glance. He senses the danger that she is not merely a woman but a mirror of all he cannot control. So he begins the silent war, withdrawal, criticism, withholding. He needs to feel superior, for her equality terrifies him. He does not realize that every attempt to diminish her feeds her transformation. She watches him perform his false dominance, and something inside her crystallizes. She sees the child behind the man, begging for control because he cannot master himself. Once she would have soothed him. Now she only watches, detached, remote. Her gaze becomes a mirror in which he sees his smallest self. He calls it cruelty, but it is reflection. And when she finally leaves, he does not lose a woman, he loses his disguise. He stands naked before his own emptiness. The same woman he tried to teach obedience now teaches him consequence. Her absence is his initiation. The world feels colder, sharper. The silence stretches like eternity, and within it, he begins to unravel. You have seen this unraveling before. The man who cannot sleep. The man who texts too late, asking meaningless questions, trying to reopen a door that no longer exists. He will speak of missing you, of confusion, of fate. Do not believe a word. His longing is not for you. It is for the reflection of himself that you once provided. You were his cathedral, and now the altar stands empty. This is the architecture of projection. He loved what you mirrored, not who you were. His devotion was self-worship in disguise. When you stopped feeding the illusion, he called you distant. He accused you of heartlessness. But heartlessness is the beginning of liberation. The woman who withdraws her empathy from the unworthy is not cruel, she is sovereign. In mythology, every goddess of darkness carries the same gift, detachment. Persephone walks calmly through hell. Medusa does not plead for understanding. Lilith does not apologize for leaving Eden. These figures are not villains. They are the personifications of boundaries. To the wounded masculine, boundaries look like betrayal, but to the awakened feminine, they are resurrection. You are not meant to heal him. You are meant to awaken him through absence, not affection. Do not be seduced by his remorse. It is not transformation, it is hunger. He seeks to consume what once sustained him. To return to him is to return to your own captivity. The anima in him will either awaken or remain chained. That is not your concern. You have done your part. You reflected his shadow until he could no longer pretend it wasn't there. The rest is his descent. Every man must face his own underworld. Some never do. Some rot beneath the surface of denial, haunted by the ghost of the woman who stopped forgiving. Do you understand the magnitude of your silence now? It is not weakness. It is prophecy. Through your withdrawal, you force him to see what love without consciousness becomes: obsession, control, decay. You are not punishing him. You are allowing him to meet his own shadow, the same way you once met yours. So tonight, when the memories whisper, when your chest aches for what once was, remember, Pain is not a sign to return. It is the echo of release. Do not reach out. Do not remind him of your softness. Power requires distance. Distance requires faith. Let him wander through the ruins of his own illusions. Let him call your name into the void and hear nothing but his own echo. You owe him no closure. The silence is the closure. He begins to unravel in the quiet. His mind becomes a labyrinth of what-ifs, replaying moments like relics of a forgotten religion. Every image of her becomes distorted, half sacred, half monstrous. He cannot decide whether she was his salvation or his ruin, and that confusion is his punishment. The shadow feeds on ambiguity, for it knows the ego cannot survive uncertainty. He remembers H. Her eyes steady, unflinching mirrors that revealed more than he wished to see. Her silence echoes now in his bones. He tries to forget, but forgetting requires indifference, and he has none left. He scrolls through old conversations, seeking clues, seeking the woman who once soothed his fractures. But she is gone. The voice that once trembled for him has turned to ice. The warmth he mistook for weakness has evolved into something merciless. This is the secret cruelty of awakening. It never happens to both at once. One ascends while the other remains trapped in the ashes of control. He once believed she was fragile, that her emotions made her dependent. Yet now he realizes her depth was his only anchor. Without her reflection, he confronts the emptiness he spent his life disguising. She too has changed. No longer the woman who waits, no longer the girl who equates pain with purpose. She walks differently now, slower, deliberate, untouched by the noise of pleading voices. Her silence is not coldness, it is evolution. In the ruins of affection, she has built a temple of detachment. She does not need to speak her power, it radiates through her absence. He does not understand this transformation. He interprets distance as disdain, misunderstanding that disdain is mercy compared to indifference. For indifference is divine. It belongs to those who have transcended the need to be seen. Every man believes he can return, that he can apologize, promise, perform remorse until the gates reopen. But the dark feminine does not operate within linear forgiveness. She does not circle back. She moves in spirals upward, outward, leaving behind what no longer vibrates with her frequency. He calls it cruelty because he cannot conceive of freedom without attachment. You know this dynamic too well, the cycle of apology and relapse, the ritual of waiting for a message that never comes or comes too late, wrapped in hollow sentiment. You once believed love required endurance, that suffering was sacred. But suffering is only sacred when it awakens you. Beyond that, it becomes decay. You are not here to rot inside someone else's unfinished healing. Do you remember the first time you felt the shift? The moment you stopped explaining yourself, stopped overcompensating for his silence. That moment was the birth of the Shadow Queen. She is not a myth. She is every woman who has stopped begging. Her throne is not gold but solitude. Her crown is not adorned with jewels but with restraint. She reigns not over men but over her own impulses to seek validation. He fears her now. He feels her presence in his absence. Every time he reaches for distraction, her silence returns. It wraps around him like fog, suffocating yet strangely sacred. He cannot escape what she taught him, that love without consciousness is parasitism. That desire without respect is consumption. That to truly love, one must first confront the void within. But his ego resists. It bargains. It rationalizes. It tells him she will soften again, that she will remember the tenderness. He forgets that the tenderness died the day she stopped mistaking attachment for loyalty. The woman who has seen through illusion cannot unsee. The serpent cannot return to the egg. And yes, you must not return to softness to be understood. You are not meant to be understood by those still enslaved by projection. You are meant to be misunderstood, feared, respected from a distance. Power demands misinterpretation. Let them call you cold. Let them name you cruel. Those who name cannot touch you. Those who judge cannot reach you. In the end, his love story was never about you. It was a stage for his shadow's performance. You were cast as muse, savior, then villain, all roles written by his unconscious need to control what he could not become. You played them all until you realized the script was poison, and then you left the play. You walked off the stage, into the night, into yourself. Now he stands before the empty theater, lights dimmed, echoing your name like a prayer that cannot ascend. He does not realize that prayers built on ownership do not reach heaven. They collapse under their own weight. Tonight, do not check the phone. Do not reread old words. Do not respond to the echoes of who you once were. Sit still, sovereign, untouchable. The world bends quietly around the woman who no longer chases. The silence deepens. Time stretches, devouring the shape of what they once were. He moves through his days like a ghost wearing his own skin, haunted not by her memory but by what she revealed. Every encounter now feels hollow, every touch, a counterfeit of the real thing. Because the real thing was never her body. It was her gaze, that ruthless mirror that stripped him of illusion. He seeks that reflection again in others, in distractions, in noise. But mirrors without depth do not show the soul. The shadow grows restless. It whispers in his ear when he tries to sleep. It shows him her face in strangers, her silence in songs, her distance in dreams. He begins to understand that she was never his possession, she was his confrontation. Her presence forced him to meet the parts of himself he'd buried beneath pride and performance. And now that she is gone, he must meet them alone. This is the moment where the masculine faces the terror of solitude, the place where the mask falls and all that remains is the trembling child beneath. Every man who loves without consciousness eventually arrives here, stripped of validation, starved of reflection. Most retreat, few endure, but the ones who endure become sovereign. They face their shadow and emerge not as conquerors but as men. She, meanwhile, walks through her own rebirth. The silence that once felt heavy has turned into music, slow, deliberate, divine. She has tasted her own power and found it calm, not loud. Her absence is not punishment but purification. She no longer measures time by his attention, nor worth by his apology. She has crossed the threshold where emotion becomes energy and energy becomes command. He once mistook her sensitivity for weakness. Now he knows it was perception, the ability to feel beyond the visible. The feminine intuition he mocked is the same force that dismantled him. She did not need to raise her voice to destroy his illusions. She simply withdrew, and the world he built around dominance collapsed. Such is the nature of archetypal law. What is built on control cannot survive absence. And you, listening now, you who once cried for closure must understand this truth. Closure is not given. It is taken. You take it the moment you stop waiting for an explanation. You take it when you stop trying to translate manipulation into love. You take it when you realize that not every wound deserves to be healed, some must be cauterized. The feminine wound has always been silence mistaken for powerlessness. The masculine wound has always been control mistaken for strength. Both are illusions sustained by fear. When she breaks the silence with awareness, she reclaims her voice. When she chooses silence with intention, she reclaims her power. These are not the same. The first liberates emotion. The second commands reality. He will try to return, they always do. He will send messages laced with nostalgia, claiming clarity, invoking destiny. But do not be fooled. The man who awakens from loss often mistakes regret for transformation. True awakening is not sentimental. It is brutal. It dismantles the ego until the shadow stands naked and humbled. Few reach that place. Most only flirt with remorse before retreating into comfort. Your task is not to evaluate his growth. Your task is to sustain your stillness, to hold the boundary with the serenity of a storm held in glass, to remain untouchable not out of pride but out of clarity. You are not the reward for his awakening. You are the consequence of his ignorance. In Jungian language, he projected the anima onto you, the image of the ideal woman, the perfect reflection of his soul. But projections are not love. They are the ego's desperate attempt to outsource its missing pieces. When you shattered that projection by being real, he saw not you but his own void. That was the beginning of his undoing. That was the purpose of your presence. The anima, once externalized, must be reclaimed. He will suffer until he learns to hold her within himself. That is his path, his descent into integration. Yours is ascension. Yours is sovereignty. You are not two halves seeking completion. You are two forces seeking consciousness through rupture. Do not mistake compassion for return. Compassion can watch from the mountain without descending into the valley. Love can witness without touching. The sacred feminine does not chase the unconscious masculine. She becomes the mirror in which he either rises or shatters. Both are his choice. So when you feel the ache, the nostalgia, the ghost of what could have been, breathe but do not reach. Let the ache remind you of the distance between illusion and truth. Let it purify, not poison. For what burns in you now is not longing, it is transformation. You are dissolving what once chained you. Remember, your silence is not the absence of love. It is the evolution of it. The love that once begged now reigns. The love that once pleaded now observes. The world tilts quietly around her. She does not chase, does not plead, does not explain. She moves through the remnants of what was, untouched by sentiment, cloaked in something higher than emotion, awareness. The kind of awareness that feels like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing you no longer fear falling. Because the woman who has died in love once cannot die that way again. He senses it, the shift in her energy. Once her presence bent toward him, seeking connection, warmth, understanding. Now it moves like smoke, elusive, intangible, impossible to possess. He tries to reach her through words, through nostalgia, through memory, but the current no longer answers him. He has become a man calling into a void that does not echo back. This is not revenge. This is reality. The dark feminine does not return to what she has already buried. When she loves, she gives the world. When she awakens, she takes it back. Not out of cruelty, but out of law, cosmic law. What was given without respect must be reclaimed without sentiment. He does not understand this sacred arithmetic. He thinks love should forgive endlessly, that devotion should survive humiliation. He forgets that love without self-respect is desecration. You must see him as he is, not as he appeared when your need blinded you. His tenderness was a performance of control, a disguise woven from desire. When you were soft, he called you chaotic. When you became still, he called you cold. He never wanted your truth, he wanted your submission. He wanted you to orbit around his self-importance, to feed his sense of being chosen. And when you stopped, the collapse began. Now he wanders through the ruins of your withdrawal. His mind replays the moments you broke pattern, when you no longer explained, no longer reacted, no longer flinched at his silence. That was the moment he realized he had lost the throne. Power shifted without ceremony. No shouting, no final confrontation, only the quiet severance of energy, the kind that no man can negotiate with. You became myth to him, an unsolved riddle, a ghost he cannot exorcise. He tells others you were complicated, unpredictable, impossible to please. Yet in private, he aches for the equilibrium your chaos once brought, because what he called chaos was only truth unfiltered by fear. You were never too much. He was simply too small to hold what was sacred. In Jung's language, his shadow now bleeds through every attempt to find replacement. He will seek you in other faces, in bodies that do not know his wounds, but his soul will betray him. Because once the anima awakens, every false connection tastes like ash. He has met his mirror, and she has left him to face himself. Meanwhile, you rise, slowly, quietly, beautifully. You no longer crave being understood. You crave peace. The kind of peace that arrives when validation loses its meaning. When you realize that power is not in being desired, but in being unbothered. You become the embodiment of detachment, not because you stopped feeling, but because you learned to feel without losing yourself. You do not hate him. Hate is a tether, and you cut all tethers. You simply remember him as the lesson that burned you awake. You recognize his purpose, to initiate you into your own darkness, to show you what you will never tolerate again. Every woman who embodies the dark feminine carries such an initiation. The betrayal, the confusion, the collapse, all of it is alchemy. Pain turns to perception. Loss turns to law. So listen closely. The final act of power is not vengeance. It is vanishing, disappearing not in bitterness but in completion. Let him wonder. Let him seek. Let him spiral. Do not correct his story about you. Every lie he tells only deepens your myth. Truth needs no defense when you have already walked away from the battlefield. He will remember your silence in moments of weakness, like a knife against his throat, not for the pain, but for the clarity it brought. He will realize too late that your absence was the greatest teacher he ever met, but you will not hear his revelation. You will be far beyond it, walking through a world that finally bends to your will, not because you force it, but because you no longer need it to validate your worth. You will meet others, perhaps, but never in the same way. The awakened woman does not love from need. She loves from overflow. She gives freely and withdraws effortlessly. Her heart is not guarded, but disciplined. She knows that devotion without discernment is self-betrayal. So let the past dissolve like incense in the air. Let him fade into myth, as all who mistake ownership for love eventually do. You are not his memory. You are his mirror, and mirrors do not chase reflections. The woman who knows her worth does not argue, she vanishes.